Back in the late 80s, Nintendo was already powering in front of Sega in sales with their Mario franchise, more specifically Super Mario Bros. 3. Sega decided that they wanted a new mascot to replace their then current mascot Alex Kidd, and at the time, people wanted something different from the arcade ports that Sega was producing. Not that they were bad, it was more like they wanted what Nintendo fans had. A fresh character, a story, a reason to play the game you were playing, rather than just games we had already played in arcades beforehand. It was a novelty at first, but something different needed to happen, and after much revisions, the character of Sonic was created and the first game was released in 1991 for the Sega Mega Drive. The disparity between Sonic and Super Mario is first shown in the form of how fast the characters move, by which I mean Sonic the Hedgehog is fast, very fast. This would become a selling point for the game, and for the Mega Drive itself. Back then there were little to no games that played like this. It was a platformer, but it was a platformer that encouraged speed, and this game was used as an example of Sega's advertisement buzzword, blast processing. People still don't really understand what it means today, but it worked, and Sonic was on the forefront of this. There is no option screen or difficulty setting. You are presented by the famous Sega logo, and then all you have to do at the title screen is hit start and the game immediately begins. No cutscenes, no dialogue, no narrative, the game begins straight away. The story of the game, according to the game's manual, states that a mad scientist known as Dr. Robotnik, who most kids will know nowadays as Dr. Eggman, is capturing innocent animals and turning them into evil robots, and it is Sonic's job to hit back and rescue all of those animals and put an end to Robotnik's evil schemes. So that's where the enemies come in. The game is full of them, and there are a rather large variety of different foes to encounter. Ultimately, they all take the same amount of damage, which is one hit, and then they explode and the little animal is now free. To defeat an enemy, you simply have to jump on top of them, or in some cases, use Sonic's spin dash, which is achieved by pressing down on the D-pad while you run. The first thing I noticed when I first played the game was how simple it was to play. While Super Mario had you optionally holding down one button to run faster and the other to jump, Sega opted to have just one command: jump. All three face buttons on the controller are used to jump, and at the time, it was all the game needed. In Sonic the Hedgehog, there are over 7 levels known as zones, and each zone is split into 3 sub-levels which are known as acts. At the end of an act, your score is tallied, characterised by how many rings you earn and how quickly you finish the stage. The idea of the game is to make your way from one end of the stage to the other, collecting rings and jumping on top of enemies as you go. Your rings are essentially the most important item you will come across throughout the game, as while there are rings in your possession, if you accidentally run into an enemy, you will spill all of the rings you have collected and have a window of a few seconds to pick them back up before they disappear. Touch an enemy without having a single ring, however, and you will die instantly, so it makes it all the more important to have at least one ring collected, as it gives you an extra opportunity to correct your mistake should you make one. At the end of a third act, you will have a boss encounter in the form of Dr. Robotnik and his flying machine. Each encounter is unique in the sense that Robotnik will have a different weapon on his machine each time. In the first level, for example, he has what looks like a wrecking ball, and all it comprises of is the ball swinging from one end of the screen to the other while you try and avoid it and jumping up to hit his machine. Hit Robotnik a total of 8 times and he malfunctions and flies away. After beating a boss battle, you come across a capsule which is housing a number of captured animals. Simply jump on top of it to release them and the stage is over. Scattered all over all of the zones in the game are video monitors. If you jump on one, you will be rewarded with a bonus. There are a total of 5 bonuses you can find in these monitors, and they comprise of the following. Temporary invincibility, which speaks for itself as it allows you to traverse the level without taking any damage for a limited amount of time. The shield, which will allow you to take a hit without losing any rings or taking any damage in general. This will only work once, and after taking one hit, the shield will disappear. 10 ring bonus, which will noticeably give you an extra 10 rings. An extra life, which will do just that. and the power sneakers, which if you think the game was fast now, the power sneakers will temporarily double the speed of the game and the music. The only thing that does not speed up is the clock, which is useful if you're trying to finish a level quick. With those mentioned, these bonuses will not prevent Sonic from dying due to being crushed or drowning, as well as falling into a bottomless pit or running out of time, which is 10 minutes for each level by the way. If you collect at least 50 rings upon completing the end of the first or second act of a zone, you will be presented with a giant ring which will float above you at the end of the level. If you jump into it, you will enter what is known as a special stage. The special stages are little maze-like puzzles in which you have to try and guide Sonic to a Chaos Emerald. What are those? Well, in Sonic the Hedgehog, if you collect all 6 Chaos Emeralds in the game, then you will be eligible to receive the good ending upon the game's completion. If you finish the game without all of them however, then all it will show at the end is Dr. Robotnik holding the remaining emeralds that you missed, with a message beneath him that says, "Try again." Other than that, there isn't really much of a difference as to whether you complete the game with or without the emeralds, as at the end of it, it's just a game completed. As well as enemies and bonuses, there are also plenty of other items distributed throughout the zones, ranging from spikes to springs, switches, air bubbles from underwater sections. These air bubbles prolong your oxygen so as you don't drown straight away. There are also lampposts that will appear a few times as you navigate the levels, and these are used as checkpoints. So if you happen to die, you will restart at the last lamppost you crossed. You will nearly always find one towards the end of the third act as you approach a boss encounter. The game's music is very upbeat and is composed by Masato Nakamura. Each zone has its own music, and personally I think all of them are very well suited. My favourite track out of the whole game has got to be from the Marble Zone. It's the one I whistle to the most anyway. Sound effects are as simple can be. Jumping on an enemy sounds satisfying, and the spin dash sounds great as well. There are also instances, such as the obvious rip-off Jaws theme song, that really puts me into a temporary state of panic. If I can react like this to a game's music or sound effects, then to me, it means the audio was done exceptionally well. Upon looking at the game, the first thing you might notice is how colourful and vibrant everything is. I mean, everything is full of colour, and everything looks the part. Almost every piece of the environment has something to do. You can see the water sparkling in the background of the Green Hill Zone, and even some plants have animation as well. It brings the game to life, and personally I think it's an incredibly important aspect of a side-scrolling platformer. Everything needs to animate, everything needs something to do. It brings the whole game alive, and I think it's very important, and I absolutely love Sonic the Hedgehog for having that aspect into the game. It doesn't look boring, and I think it's brilliant. Overall, I think the graphics are absolutely incredible, and if you were impressed by it then, you'll still be impressed by it now. And that's the beauty of Sonic the Hedgehog and its visuals. It still looks good, even 25 years later. I first played Sonic the Hedgehog when I was 3 years old, and up until the age of 26 I never beat the game from start to finish. I took it upon myself to beat Sonic 1, 2 and 3 for the first time this year, and I felt that it only made sense to come back and review them properly, since I have a lot I can back up this time because I've experienced them all in full. Sonic the Hedgehog is a legendary game, and there is a reason it became Sega's biggest draw back in the 90s. It pushed the sales of the Mega Drive, and there has barely been any platformer like it since. I still play it to this day when I just want something to turn on for a few minutes, and that's the beauty of it. It's still very playable and very easy to pick up and play, even today. That's important to me. If a game can still be picked up and played easy 25 years later and still be thoroughly enjoyed, then it means the game is a success in my books. But hey, that was only Sonic 1. I still have 2 more to cover, so stay tuned to this channel and I will be back again with the review of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and thanks very much for taking the time to check out this episode of Classix Review Remastered. This has been Gamerboy talking here, talking to you on Gamerboy Gaming, where I play the games that you need to have. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you on Sonic 2. Cheerio.